Thank you for joining us for yet another program transforming lives one at a time. We are coming to you from beautiful Tobago, the Twin Island Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. So, of course, if you are looking for holidays, sea and sun and relaxation, then Tobago is your choice. I'm your host, Dianne, in your company, always happy to be with you. Today, we will be speaking about issues surrounding eye health, and I have a very capable guest to share that vital information with us. Dr. Dorian Dwarika stands as a luminary figure in the field of ophthalmology, blending his profound expertise in medicine with a rich background in chemical engineering and industrial management. His journey is characterized by a relentless pursuit of excellence, innovation, and service to humanity. Dr. Dwarika embarked on his medical journey with unwavering dedication, earning numerous accolades along the way. Notable among these is the 1989 National Scholarship to study medicine at the University of the West Indies. Dr. Dwarika's passion blossomed during his training at the Birmingham and Midlands Eye Hospital, where he gained invaluable experience in general and subspecialty ophthalmology. His expertise in complex cataract surgery, glaucoma surgery, and vitreoretinal procedures is second to none. Dr. Dwarika stands as one of the select few retinal surgeons in Trinidad and Tobago. With his meticulous approach and a steady hand, he has performed countless complex surgeries, restoring vision and transforming lives with each procedure. He is the chief ophthalmologist at Eyes TT Clinic. Dr. Dwarika, welcome to the program. Happy to have you today.
Good morning. Thank you very much for the invitation. Much appreciated.
Yes. And hopefully at the end of the program, our viewers will be saying that I can see clearly now, right?
That's a very appropriate one.
Yes. Well, Dr. Dwarika, there are so many issues regarding eye health. And we want to clarify and, as it were, shed some light on some of these issues that affect us on a daily basis. First of all, is there anything about a person's medical or family history that puts them at a higher risk for eye disease?
There, as in many things with respect to the body's function and medicine, family history and genetics play a very important part. So if one were to take the most common example of what we call refractive errors and glasses type errors, many families who have a history of short-sightedness or myopia in the family, they go on to have children who have an increased risk of developing myopia. So that is the basic things like glasses for short-sightedness. This extends to more profound issues. For example, there's a very common condition in Tobago called glaucoma. Glaucoma is in its standard form, which is called primary open-angle glaucoma, very family related. So it's a strong family history for the development of glaucoma. And so that people who have glaucoma should have their children checked. In addition to that, we have things like diabetes mellitus. Diabetes mellitus, which is a lifestyle disease, but we also have a strong family correlation with it. And of course, diabetes mellitus can lead to severe eye problems. Furthermore, we have in the other age groups, that is, say, people who severely have problems with early cataracts, which we call very early on in life, they have a higher chance in certain situations of passing that characteristic onto their families. So their children need to be screened. So across the board, many conditions have family histories and increased incidence with a family correlation. So in those situations, when the ophthalmologist is made aware that we have these issues happening, or the general practitioner or the pediatrician, we could go on to screen the offspring quite easily and sort of protect against, so in some cases, could even cure certain conditions.
Right. Well, let's talk about diabetes and high blood pressure because we know These two are lifestyle diseases that are very prevalent in Trinidad and Tobago. I want to talk about how these two diseases, in particular, how can they affect the eyes? Because sometimes we take it for granted because sometimes your doctor will tell you, okay, having high blood pressure, it will affect your eyes. But sometimes you don't get into the defined details of exactly how and how severe your eyes can be affected.
So, let us start with diabetes and blood pressure commonly occur together. But let's talk about the blood pressure one first. Uncontrolled blood pressure, when it's very uncontrolled and very high, could directly affect the eye structures and that could lead to decreased vision. But that's not a very common thing. We tend to have the more common thing being somewhat high blood pressure over a long period of time, which causes some eye problems. And that slowly can cause problems later on because blood pressure issues are related to cardiovascular issues, related to things like stroke, heart attack development. And these lead to eye problems because you can have a stroke of the eye, which we call a blocked vein. And these are higher in cases with high blood pressure. So the doctors point that we should control the pressure is very important because over a long period of time, we can develop cardiovascular disease, which could lead to these problems, which could be very significant and very life changing. Of course, the other one where we say we have extremely high blood pressure that could knock out the vision quite overnight, but those are incredibly rare. Now, the other issue we're talking about is when local blood pressure occurs with diabetes, then you have a double whammy. These things together sort of potentiate or make each other worse, and they tend to have a string of eye problems. Now, with respect to diabetes, which is the next part of the question you're asking me, diabetes starts to have serious problems from the start. So initially, it's all correctable. So when one doesn't know one has diabetes, and let us say their blood pressure goes up very high, probably 400 plus in some people, their actual vision can get fuzzy. And this is what happens initially. It gets fuzzy because the diabetes can cause the natural lens to swell. But when the blood sugar, not blood pressure, but the blood sugar, when the blood sugar returns to the normal level, that when the doctor gives medication or the diet control is there, the blood sugar pressure comes down and that vision improves and comes back to normal. So that's the first indication of a problem diabetes can cause with respect to vision. The other types of problems are the serious ones, and these are not long-term problems we need to deal with. So diabetes causes a series of we're talking now about the general diabetes we get, which we call type 2 diabetes as we get maturity onset.
Yes.
With these, we're over time, it can cause certain changes within the lining of the eye or the retina. And these can lead to things we call swelling of the center bit of the vision, which gradually drops the vision. And if it's not treated, it can persist and cause permanent decreased vision later on. So this is something we need to treat. Furthermore, we've all heard about people getting bleeding in the eyes. So diabetes can lead, if it's uncontrolled, and after many years, can lead to actual blood within the eye. And this is called bleeding. And anytime there's blood in the eye, we can have a serious issue. You can have scarring. Remember, if you get a cut, you will get a scar, and that could lead to severe blindness later on. So I'm just describing what can happen, but what when we discover you have diabetes, we have to see you to analyze and to sort of examine, and we could prevent these things from going on to become that.
Right. But what lifestyle changes, even as we're talking about diabetes and the high blood pressure, uh, what lifestyle changes, maybe a change of diet or quitting smoking, can one make to improve eye health and reduce risks?
So, the, with respect to lifestyle changes, so first we need to remember your health is a partnership between the individual and the medical fraternity. And we have what we call community here and community doctors, community health service people. We have a lot of programs that help us to identify problems, screening programs. If one were to be screened with diabetes and blood pressure, the most important lifestyle change is to go and visit your doctor at the recommended times. That is the single most important thing because one can now identify problems within, then we could treat them. So, for example, with respect to blood pressure issues, one can change diets appropriately depending on the type of issues we have. According to the advice of the doctor, one can monitor the input of what you're eating, the constituents of the food. One can increase exercise. One can move away from a sedentary lifestyle and help decrease and the blood pressure threat by decreasing the blood pressure level to levels that are applicable for the age group. However, one also will get seen by an eye doctor as well. So we could look for eye problems. So if there are problems developing early, we could treat it. So that is the most important thing. Seeing your healthcare practitioner at a regular time. With respect to diabetes, of course, that is an entire area that requires a multidisciplinary approach. So when the patient is identified as having diabetes, they're counseled on the importance of the visit, then they're counseled on the importance of diet. And depending on when they're seen, they're counseled on the importance of medication or exercise as part of it. So all of these things are put together help us. So we should have blood pressure control, blood sugar control, cholesterol and lipids control, and weight control. That triad, that tetrad is the keystone of managing diabetic damage with respect to the eye and throughout the body. So the changes of lifestyle will be the way one eats, what one eats, the quantities with respect to stress, exercise, and seeing your doctors. And all of these have beneficial effects and they're helped by the healthcare professionals. You will have clinics in the health centers and you'll have hospital clinics. And then we have our private doctor network, which will help us ensure that the patient gets the best advice for each particular part of the journey they're on.
Yes. Well, Dr. Dwarika, as you know quite well, with the advent of social media, phones, tablets, laptops, and even television, our eyes are always on a screen. Is screen time hurting the eyes, and what strategies do you recommend? Even the babies on the screens too, doctor.
Yes, I know this. So, this has become quite an important thing of late. And what has allowed us to understand it more was the COVID epidemic, where we ended up spending many, many hours on screen without going outside, and it affected many children. So, screen time is very important. So, I'm going to divide the question into adults and children. So, with respect to adults, the main thing about screen time is that it can cause tiredness of the eyes by actually being there and a long time looking at the machine. So, what we recommend is for ever so often during the process where we're reading or doing our computer work, we take some time to stop or take a break. So you look up from what you're doing for about 20 seconds to some spot about 20 meters into the distance and probably do that for every 20 minutes to sort of decrease the what we call the work or the constant work the eye muscles are doing to concentrate. So just furthermore, when one works on a screen, one blinks less frequently because that is a natural body mechanism to allow us to concentrate. If we blink less frequency, the surfaces of our eyes dry off more quickly. So one can now force yourself to blink more frequently. One can ensure that the environment within the room it doesn't dry out. Like if the AC is drying out the room a lot, one can change the AC setting, or one can basically use artificial tears to help during the procedure. the process of reading and so on to decrease the dryness, especially when we have things like Sahara dust. And when one wants to study for a long period of time, this can make the process a little more arduous because it affects the comfort. So having an environment that is nicely sort of moist, so one can, in terms of not being too dry, ensuring the eyes are lubricated with drops, and taking this break from the constant work to blink a little more often and to rest the eyes, all go a long way. So the other thing about it is, as in the adult category, one needs to have a trip to the optometrist where we look at your glasses strengths, not necessarily to give you glasses, but to make sure your glasses corrections allow you to do what you need to do, that is to see adequately and to ensure that it's comfortable. Because if one tries to concentrate on a screen for too long with an incorrect glasses correction, or if you need glasses correction and one doesn't have it, that can lead to headaches around the eye, and the forehead. That can lead to tiredness. So a step is to have the correct glasses for the appropriate occasion. So an important thing is to have that checked done. Now, when one goes to children, we have a different kettle of fish altogether. In the younger age groups, use of small devices like telephones and mobile phones to do work is a very dangerous thing, because the small letters to concentrate on it, in many children who have a propensity to get it, they can lead to increased short-sightedness or myopia. And after COVID, we ended up with a myopia epidemic throughout the world, where children were spending a lot of time on these small devices, and the negative correction on their glasses got higher and higher. And that led to thicker and thicker glasses, which in turn, in the long run, will lead to more problems like early onset cataracts, glaucoma development, retinal detachment development, which are very serious problems that happen later on. So for all children, they need to have the trip to the eye doctor or the optometrist to check the status of their eyes. That is their glasses status. Then for those predisposed to myopia and even the normal ones, they should not be using the cell phones to do schoolwork. Use a computer screen, use the TV screen, but close work is a very serious no-no, because that leads to perpetuation of the problem and leads to serious problems later on. Furthermore, all children, up 15 plus onwards, where they have continued eye development, you need to have time for each time off each day. You need about an hour to an hour and a half outside of the house, not doing any close focusing, to allow for normal eye development. And we found out during the COVID time, when children did not have this, we had serious increases in the glasses strengths. So the take-home message is proper correction of prescription glasses prescription on a regular basis, the desisting of the use of small devices for close long periods in the children, and the need for being outdoors on a regular basis, that is for each day for at least an hour to an hour and a half, to decrease the work of the muscles on the eyes and to sort of decrease the drive of the eye to develop something called myopia, which is a very serious problem. So my question was divided into adults and children, and there are many things that can happen. Of course, children can be subject to the tearing issues, to the Sahara dust, to allergic problems, so that the screen time could make their eyes a little more red and irritable. They need to trip to the eye doctor to have it checked out so that we could get lubricants and make sure we decrease the allergic drive. And of course, specific children who have more detailed problems will need more detailed answers from their eye practitioner on the use of these close devices.
Well, at this time, we're going to take our first short break and we will return to stay with us.
If you're wondering where to find top-tier quality tiles and products to refurbish or renovate your wall, floor, or pool, well, your worry is over. Come to D-Cell's Tile and Ceiling Center, Store Bay Local Road, opposite the Bonnecourt Primary School, Tobago, where you will find porcelain, mosaic, and ceramic tiles of the highest quality guaranteed. D-Cells Tile and Ceiling Center also stocks thinset, grout, tile cutters, and yes, windows. Plus, a friendly smile and service that's second to none awaits you. So forget the hassle and get all the quality tiles you need right here in Tobago at D-Cells Tile and Ceiling Center. Call us today at 460-8802, 639-8281. Opens Monday to Saturday from 9 a.m.
Do you need electrical and plumbing supplies from construction to finish? Then check out Voodoo's Enterprises Limited, Milford Road, Canaan, Tobago. Get LED bulbs and fixtures, septic tanks, water pumps, laminate flooring, press cut power tools, and so much more. Open Monday to Saturday from 8 a.m. Call 280-2050 or 660-4970. Voodoo's Enterprises Limited. Powerlink Graphic Enterprise, Storby Local Road, Crown Point, Tobago, for a variety of quality printing products, including banners, posters, jerseys, flyers, and more. Graduation packages, get customized grad bags, mugs, newspapers, and the list goes on. Powerlink Graphic Enterprise, open Monday to Saturday from 9 a.m. Call 269-6996. We create ideas that inspire. Hi, I am Dianne, host of Transforming Lives One at a Time, and I would like to introduce you to our brand new segment, Good Vibes, Good News. And this is where you have the opportunity to highlight your good news. You can send your 90 seconds video to our WhatsApp number 868-701-2099. That's 868-701-2099. Let's hear some of the good news that we never hear about. Good vibes, good news. Inspiring hope. Celebrating wins. Truly grateful.
Welcome back to Transforming Lives One at a Time. We are talking about eye health today. Dr. Dwarika, just before the break, we were talking about the use in terms of we have so many persons on the screens and stuff, and you, of course, you answered that quite competently. I want to talk about contact lens and the question of safety for long-term use. And one of our viewers is actually asking, which is better, contact lens or glasses?
So to start with, contact lenses are a well-recognized, what we call aid to refraction for in the world in general. And contact lens technology has come a long way. These are very safe to use once we have determined by examination that it's safe for the eye. So before one gets contact lenses, of course, we have cosmetic contact lenses, which people tend to put on without any sort of eye examination. But I would urge everyone attempting to wear any type of contact lens, either cosmetic or normal, to have a proper check with their contact lens dispenser. The contact lens dispenser is usually what we call an optometrist specializing in contact lenses. And when, as part of the examination, they must determine the correct strength of contact lens for the patient. But in addition to do that, the examination entails examining certain things about the patient that make contact lenses safe. So, for example, if one were to have a severe allergic eye disease, and which leads to little lumpy things on the pink part of the inside of the lids, prolonged contact lens wear could be a problem. So these need to be treated. So these are identified by the practitioner. If one's eyes were to be dry, we're not talking about the occasional dryness that we note, but dry in the medical terminology then contact lenses may not be indicated and may need special care to use them. If one's eyes are prone to infection and the surface of the eye can become infected, for example, the cornea, which is the clear part to the surface in front, were to become infected and one were to wear contact lens on it, that infection can run away and one can lose the eye. So when the eye care provider looks at the patient, they decide if there are any particular precautions that should be made, that should be taken, or any diseases that need to be treated before embarking on the contact lenses. And then the contact lens type is chosen. One can have rigid lenses, one can have what we call gas permeable lenses. We can have soft daily disposable, soft 2 weekly disposable, monthly disposable. So they vary depending on which one is more applicable for the patient and how they want to use the contact lenses. So at this point, you're realizing that I'm not putting a battle between glasses and contact lenses. I'm saying the contact lenses have their place and they can be used once it's appropriate. And in many cases, they can do the work of the glasses. Now, there's some people who can't wear contact lenses on a prolonged period. We need to have to break up the contact lens wear. In between those periods, these people wear glasses of the correct prescriptions. There's some people whose eyes cannot have contact lens at all because they can lead to infection or they're too dry or could damage the surface. Then these are advisable to have glasses alone or any or other features. So contact lenses and glasses work together because most people who have contact lenses also have a backup pair of glasses. But one is not necessarily better than the other. However, there are certain peculiar cases. Now, in the older days, when one did cataract surgery, and you had these big, thick glasses like sweet drink bottle glasses, which were really thick. In those cases, what we did was remove the lens from the eye which was the cataract, and didn't replace it. And the thick glasses was used for allowing the patient to see. Contact lenses work much better than glasses for those sort of situations. So if one could have worn a contact lens for that, that will be the superior choice. So those would be one of the cases. And there are other cases, let us say, where we have children who have what we call severe allergic problems, and their eyes are always itchy. Contact lenses are very bad for them. Glasses are much better. So I just gave you two examples on the edges of the spectrum. So to answer your friend, it all depends on which one is safe for you and what lifestyle you want to lead.
Right. And let's talk about how often should one change their glasses?
That is not a question that is answered on a time basis. One doesn't have a 1 year or 2 years. This is it depends on what we call the examination by the eye care provider. So in children, when children have glasses, sometimes we may need to have eye examination as often as every 3 months. And if we find changes, we may have to change glasses 3 monthly, 6 monthly, sometimes a year. It all depends on how we have to achieve the best outcome for them until they're an adult. So the answer for that, it depends on what problem we're treating and the advice of the eye care provider for the children. And this one is a non-negotiable thing. You can't go based on how often you feel, or it should be every year or so. This one has to be, they have to show up for the regular testing. And based on the testing, we determine when it needs to be changed. In an adult, a similar thing applies. But because it is easier for the optometrists and the glasses companies to remind you to come in every 2 years, we tend to have it built in the back of our minds every 2 years. But the optometrists and the glasses people are being very responsible because people need to have their regular examination to pick up things like glaucoma, other damage that needs treatment before, and so on. So you need to get the patients in. So you tell them to come in every 2 years so we don't lose sight of them and lose the chance to treat conditions that may have the blindness associated with them if we don't know. So what happens once the optometrist or the eye care provider sees you and determines whether the glasses can last for longer safely, one then has the choice to keep using the correct glasses or to change to something newer. One could always change to a newer one if one wants a prettier glasses. But once you have your eye care provider looking and giving you a safe bill of health to continue, then one can continue indefinitely according to the advice.
Well, Dr. Dwarika, is a comprehensive eye exam needed across the board for every individual? Does every person have to have that?
And the answer to that is yes. It's an important thing. Children definitely, after the first year of life, must be checked out. Sometimes we need to see them annually, and until they're about 15 or so. For adults, sometimes once you've had your eye examination, usually for the first until about 40, every year and a half to 2 years. And then after that, to pick up conditions, we see them annually and then more frequently if one has an eye problem, for example, glaucoma, diabetes, or other things that could cause severe sight problems, we may have to see more regularly. So with a categorical yes, everyone needs an eye examination. And it starts with, it can be done by the optometrist or the ophthalmologist, who is the eye doctor. If the optometrist picks up a problem, they will send the patient off to the eye doctor, who is the ophthalmologist, and they will fix the problem. But you must have that initial contact so that we could determine the pathway of treatment to ensure one is able to keep their eyesight to maximum level for the rest of life.
Well, one thing you're saying there that is, really touching a vein with me is that because just like how you would go for your general checkup with your physical health, um, even so, it's important to go to have your eyes tested because many persons tend to overlook that and they say, well, okay, well, I don't have any problem with my eyes. I would just wear sunglasses. But what I'm hearing is that just as you would go for your general checkup with other things, check on your blood sugar levels, check on your cholesterol, even so, you have to check on your eye health.
That is very correct. And we can't underline that enough. One has to have it because especially in an island like Tobago, where we have a high incidence of something called glaucoma, which is family related. If one waits until we have an eye problem to go for a check, we could lose our chance at sight and this thing is called glaucoma permanently blinds. So we want you to go in and have this check. It's very important.
Definitely. Well, Doc, when we talk about refractive errors, nearsightedness, and farsightedness, what exactly are we referring to?
So when for one to see, your eye is like, we have a binoculars. Or if you have a those people are aware of telescopes, or even your cell phone camera. One has to focus to get a clear picture. So your camera must have the correct lens setting to focus, or else the picture is blurry. Lens settings come in two sizes, either plus lens settings or minus lens settings, depending on the shape of the lens. If it's 2 and 0 is when it's properly focused, where you will get a clear image, like a clear image on the camera. If when we do the check, depending on the shape, it is too much in the plus setting, that is, or too much in the negative or minus setting, our image will not be crisp and clear, just like the camera where we take a picture and it's fuzzy, the image will be fuzzy. So when we do the checks, if the numbers become positive or we have a plus behind them, that patient is called, the condition is called farsightedness. If the number is checked up and it comes on the negative side, the shape of the lens is categorized the negative side. That is called myopia or short-sightedness. So the two terms we use for negative side is short-sightedness or myopia. For the positive type of lenses is farsighted or hyperopia. People tend to try to correlate it with nearsighted being. So we did that to primarily understand it, where we say If you're able to see close up well but have a distance issue, we call you nearsighted or myopic. Or if the converse were true, you were able to see distance okay, but for near fuzzy, that will be farsighted. But it doesn't hold out in practice. In practice, so it's just a rough guided. In practice, the shape of the lenses, if it requires negative lenses, you're myopia. And it sorts of correlate with children who could see well near, but distance vision not too clear. And for those people who are getting older, but had pretty normal eyes, when they can't see to read and they have to push things a little further, they tend to need a positive lens. So we said they're presbyopic or hyperopia. So those are your two broad categories of what we call refractive errors, and they need different types of lenses in the glasses to give us those corrections.
Well, let's bring into the mix, Dr. Dwarika, some of the more common eye diseases. I know very prevalent, and we touched on it before, very prevalent is glaucoma and, of course, cataract. So let's talk about exactly what these conditions entail and what age group it affects most.
So let's start with cataract because cataract is very important. Everybody, once we cross the age of 40, have cataracts. That's normal. It goes along with gray hairs, and that's a normal development we all have. But it doesn't mean that we have to operate and take cataracts after everybody. It's just the development. So what a cataract is, in the interior of one's eye, there's a glasses lens, a lens like a glasses lens. And as we get older, around that age, the lens starts to change color. Gets a little bit brownish or whitish, or might get little flecks of white or little fuzzy areas. And when it starts to get those color changes, we call the entire lens a cataract. So of course, that could only be determined when you see the eye care practitioner. They will let you know what you have. Now, when we get this cataract, if the little discoloration is not affecting the center of your lens and not changing the quality of the lens and making it uneven, then one can have normal vision practically for the rest of your life without having to interfere with the cataract. One might need a glasses update or so, but one may not need to interfere with the cataract. However, if during this period of time as one ages past 40, the cataract were, let us say, to get more fuzzy or to start to block the center of the vision, it can lead to decreased vision, and one might need to address it in something called cataract surgery. And in cataract surgery, one removes the cloudy lens and one replaces it with an artificial lens, which will last for the rest of your life. And this solves the problem. But having a cataract doesn't necessarily mean one has a disease. It's just like gray hair. And one fixes it if you want to get improved vision. Now, with modern cataract surgery, things have become a lot better. In the past, one had to wait before cataracts become a problem and started to cause vision issues. We can now, because we're removing the lens from your eye, which is the cataract lens, and replacing it with an artificial lens, one can build into the lens your glasses correction. So if one wanted thinner glasses or no glasses at all, once provided you were an appropriate candidate, one can do cataract surgery before it affects your vision so that one wouldn't need glasses at all, either for distance or near. So cataract surgery has now come to that stage. If one has a little blur and one wants to get rid of it because you wanted perfect vision, you do not have to wait again until it becomes a big issue, because cataract surgeries now have a success rate in the range of about 99%, with the risk of a severe problem or sight-threatening problem being very low, with less than 1 in 1,000. Now, so that is with respect to the cataracts, which we all get and we all have, and it can affect us in certain ways. Now, the other condition, which is incredibly common, is called presbyopia. And presbyopia It's the condition we all get once we cross about 39, 40, where things start to become fuzzy from there, and we have to push the paper a bit further away to read. And that's for people who have normal eyes, who didn't need glasses before. And this condition happens to us all, and it progresses until we're about 60. So during this period, we need our check by our optometrist or our eye doctor so that we could get glasses for reading, or we can have certain specialized cataract surgery to remove the need for glasses and then entirely. But we need to do something about that so that we'll see close up to read and focus on near things. So that is the next common thing. And after that, now we go on to the other common eye problems. So the common eye problem after that will be just glasses correction as we get throughout life. That is, as you alluded to, nearsightedness, farsightedness. Then we have things like allergic eye disease, where we become allergic to things in the environment like pollen and dust, where the eye becomes red and itchy all the time and uncomfortable. So this needs treatment. So this is also very common. And then we have allergic eye disease in children, which is incredibly problematic because if they rub the eyes a lot, children can change the shape of the eyes and lead to severe glasses issues later on. So that needs to be checked. So if the child is seen to be rubbing the eyes regularly and having watery eyes, they need to be seen so we could address that issue quickly. So that would be, in a nutshell, the more common normal ones. Then one would go on to things like injuries, because one can have a knock to the eye, and children have pencil sticks, you can have dust flying in the eyes, a ball hitting on the eyes. So these injuries are also a very common cause of eye problems. And once an injury happens, an eye care professional must look at the patient, because that's the only way we can see if there's damage happening, so that we could have a magnified view and treat. So for example, if one were to have a damage to the front of the eye where one would have a cut across the front, that needs urgent treatment. If you were to have, let us say, a pencil stick, that can't wait. That needs treatment, because to save the eye from infection later on, things like whacker injuries and things flying into the eye from these high velocity projectiles, urgent treatment required, because that could lead to infections in the eye. And one can not only lose vision, one can lose the eyeball itself and need prosthetic eye. So that would be a common thing. Now, what other areas of the common diseases would you like me to touch on?
But just before we touch on that, we're going to take another short break and we will return. Still first, if you're in Transforming Lives One at a Time, we are speaking eye health with Dr. Dorian Dwarika.
If you're wondering where to find top-tier quality tiles and products to refurbish or renovate your wall, floor, or pool, well, your worry is over. Come to D-Cell's Tile and Ceiling Center, Store Bay Local Road, opposite the Bonnecourt Primary School, Tobago, where you will find porcelain, mosaic, and ceramic tiles of the highest quality guaranteed. D-Cell's Tile and Ceiling Center also stocks thinset, grout, tile cutters, and yes, windows. Plus, a friendly smile and service that's second to none awaits you. So forget the hassle and get all the quality tiles you need right here in Tobago at D-Cell's Tile and Ceiling Center. Call us today at 460-8802, 639-8281. Opens Monday to Saturday from 9 a.m.
Powerlink Graphic Enterprise, Storby Local Road, Crown Point, Tobago, for a variety of quality printing products, including banners, posters, jerseys, flyers, and more. Graduation packages, get customized grab bags, mugs, newspapers, and the list goes on. Powerlink Graphic Enterprise, open Monday to Saturday from 9 a.m. Call 269-6996. We create ideas that inspire. Do you need electrical and plumbing supplies from construction to finish? Then check out Voodoo's Enterprises Limited, Milford Road, Canaan, Tobago. Get LED bulbs and fixtures, septic tanks, water pumps, laminate flooring, press cut power tools, and so much more. Open Monday to Saturday from 8 a.m. Call 280-2050 or 660-4970. Voodoo's Enterprises Limited.
Welcome back to the program. Well, Dr. Dwarika, I want us to talk about some of the more serious eye diseases that can actually lead to blindness and maybe some of the symptoms that we can look for.
So we'll divide this into adults and children.
Yes.
So as we are discussing with children, every child by about age 1 should have an eye examination by either their pediatrician or their eye doctor, depending on the availability, so we can look for problems. Now, in the pediatric eye group, if one notices the child having a squint, that is, the eyes are commonly called pokey eyes or lazy eyes.
Yes.
This is very important, and it needs to be addressed urgently by an eye specialist. So the patient should go to hospital or go to an eye specialist, because certain things that can be happening there require urgent attention, because some things can lead to permanent blindness. So this is a very important thing. Furthermore, if the child develops a whitish looking pupil, like these whitish things like the Shaolin monks used to have, which we call whitish cataract, that is an urgent thing that needs to be seen right away. Any trauma or injury from the children in terms of anything hitting the eye, pencils, whackers, these are very urgent and need to be seen urgently. So that's the first bit with respect to children. And of course, children need to have their appropriate follow-up, because we have things that we can correct, and if not correct, it can lead to problems. So we could pick up things like early cataracts in children, which is rare but needs urgent attention. We can pick up things like the early development of glaucoma, which is incredibly rare but needed urgent attention. So that would be in your children's age group. And then, of course, refractive errors, which might seem simple, but if we don't correct them, that can lead to severe problems and even blindness later on. Now, with respect to the spectrum of diseases that we commonly get as adults in Tobago that could cause blindness. First one is cataract, and the blindness from cataract is temporary blindness because we can fix cataract. So if one were to have the vision dropping, we can, and once it's identified, it can be fixed with an operation, and these operations have high success rate. The more problem ones will be glaucoma. Glaucoma is very common in our population. It doesn't have a telltale trail or fingerprint or symptoms. Glaucoma development is incredibly slow. Takes about 15 years to fully develop, and when it's starting, one has no symptoms. One cannot determine one is having glaucoma. Now, glaucoma happens when the internal environment in the eye becomes hostile to the eye, and that starts to kill the nerve, which is the important part for seeing, and slowly kills vision from around first and leaves the center intact. But because it's a slow process, you wouldn't know it's happening until it's too late, because one would assume this is normal. So when severe damage has happened, at least 90% permanent damage has happened, only about then we become aware of it. So one needs to pick it up early. So early, having the regular checks at the optometrist or the eye care professional is important. Or if one has a family history of glaucoma, one needs to be checked. You will ask how soon? I'll say as soon as possible. Even in the young adults as well, they need to be checked.
Yes.
Glaucoma, we just briefly go through the treatment. The thing that we could control in glaucoma is the eye pressure. If we picked up early enough, one can prevent glaucoma from developing. So we are able to risk profile and manage the development of glaucoma by lowering the eye pressures with sometimes eye drops or medicine. So this can be a serious issue we need care for. So eye drops, and then sometimes in the future, if it's not working, we can use operation. But I lowering the pressure in the eye protects us from developing glaucoma. So this is the first thing. The important thing is one has to regularly use the drops. One has to regularly keep the appointments, because if one's treatment today is not going to be the same for the next 4 years, So this can be a serious problem. So that is this is one of the things we must be mindful about in the Tobago population, regular eye care.
Yes.
The second problem that we have to deal with is diabetic eye care. And diabetic eye problems are serious because it's all preventable. If we could control our diabetes, we prevent it, but we can't stop it from starting, but we can make the problem much less.
Right.
So diabetes can cause what we call swelling of the eyes. That needs regular attention to pick it up and some pictures of the eyes and your regular check with the eye care provider. And if we identify swelling, we could get rid of it by injections of special medicines into the eye, which are very good at protecting it. Then if the eye is not, another problem one can get is bleeding from diabetes, which can cause serious problem by dropping the vision levels, causing scarring, then that could lead to serious blindness. But when we pick it up early and protect against it, one can protect against it happening, and one can also do the appropriate treatment, which might include things like laser treatments and in some cases operations to protect, prevent against blindness.
Right, because I was just about to bring into the mix that we can't be talking about eye disease and not talk treatments like laser therapy, surgery, and medication. So you could just tell us a little bit more about that.
So with respect to diabetic eye care, the most important treatment is control, blood sugar, blood pressure, cholesterol, and weight. That's prevention and treatment. However, when one starts to determine things, having the regular visit to the eye doctor is important to pick up the problems. And then we can use certain treatments, which include injections of special medicines called anti-VEGF medicines. We might need to use certain laser treatment, and then we might need operations because cataracts develop a little quicker in diabetics. We do cataract surgery. Or if the eye is bleeding on the back and scarring, we might need operations to fix that. But the earlier we initiate treatment, the better it is overall.
Okay.
And because we have a chance of, initially, we have a chance of keeping one's vision perfect for the rest. But if things were to develop, the earlier we get on it and the sooner we do the treatment, we could salvage a lot of the vision.
Of course. And of course, prevention is always better than cure. Always, always, always. Well, doctor, I want to bring quickly the famous pink eye. Well, in Trinidad and Tobago, we know it as red eye, but of course, we have an international audience and they would know it as pink eye. So let's just talk quickly about that.
Yeah, it's known as red eye and pink. Red eye is throughout the world as well. Pink eye is a variant that is just the color it looks at it. So it's there throughout the world, whichever. It's a viral conjunctivitis and it's caused usually by a virus called an adenovirus. It's the class of the virus. It's a very contagious thing. It's spread very easily by touching the material, getting it in the eye from surfaces and so on. It tends to be self-limiting. In about 2 to 3 weeks, it's gone. But if one has it in the family, one can spread it by sharing towels and other so on, touching the surfaces and touching your eye.
Yes.
It's a limiting problem in most cases, but it can be a very uncomfortable problem. So if one has it, one should seek medical attention. Sometimes we give lubricants, sometimes we give steroids, sometimes depending on, we might need antibiotics if we have an infection on top of it.
Right.
So it's quite an important thing we can prevent against by staying away. But if we have it, we have things to mitigate the symptoms.
Yes, yes. Well, Doc, as we get ready to wrap up the program for today, I would like to give you the opportunity to highlight an area that we did not touch on, or maybe to reiterate something that was said earlier that is worth repeating.
So the most important thing is to have regular a visit with the eye care provider. We can't underscore that more. That's the most important thing.
Yes.
Because at these visits, we could pick up issues and we can start initiating treatment and prevention. The other thing is to keep your follow-up visits, because once we've had a first visit, if a follow-up is required or recommended, so that will be the most important thing. And it applies for children because we don't want to leave them out. There are critical problems that need to be assessed, and for young adults and for adults and elderly as well.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much. I want to take the opportunity to thank my guest today, ophthalmologist Dr. Dorian Dwarika, for taking time out of your super busy schedule. I know our schedule is super busy. So I want to thank you so much for your continued service and commitment to the people of this nation and, of course, worldwide, because I know you work in the region and, of course, internationally as well. And I want to wish you all the best in your future endeavors. So thanks again for taking time off to be on Transforming Lives One at a Time.
Thank you very much, Deb. Have a good day.
Yes, thank you. Well, viewers, this is how we wrap things up for today. I want to thank my guest again, Dr. Dwarika, for joining us. And I know that this program has literally been an eye opener for you, no pun intended. And of course, you will take the necessary steps to taking better care of your eyes. As one person said, you cannot go into the store and purchase a pair of eyes. A word to the wise is sufficient. I am Dianne, of course, always happy to be in your space. As usual, I leave you with the definition of transformation, which is an internal shift that brings us into alignment with our fullest potential. Hey, we've got this. See you next time. As usual, I leave you with the beautiful seeds of Tobago.